might get a
Where is
ticket.
this?
On 6th and cancel.
They didn't do it last
Okay.
time.
That is.
There we go.
Oh, that
We're
one.
good.
I try not to go to Joco.
$2, I don't care.
The Joco tag. Look at-
Okay, we are back online, correct?
I usually rely on my veteran tags.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Returning to open session, I believe Commissioner Berger has a motion to make.
Yes, again, serving as the scrivener for the recess session with regard to number 802, we find that it is insufficient. With regard to 793, we accept the dismissal.
Seconded.
Yes. And should I talk about the other?
That's a motion, no?
Oh,
You're making a motion.
well, I guess we do need to move. Yes, I'm so sorry.
So moved. So moved.
So moved.
Motion has been seconded. Any additional discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes. Believe we had another motion to make with respect to the executive session.
Yes, and again, serving as just the scrivener of those conversations and making, I guess I'll immediately turn that into a motion with regard to the transitional issues. For those transitional issues, that Ms. Bull Stewart will remain as the general counsel and continue to serve as general counsel to litigate the matters and otherwise serve in the full capacity of all the interests of the commission. That equally all investigations continue, all staff functions continue, and that we will be operating and fulfilling all of our governmental functions while we are searching for a new executive director. In the event that there is a decision or an action specifically by the executive director, that matter would be brought to the commission in an emergency sort of session or meeting where that matter can be addressed. A subcommittee is to be appointed for the search and replacement process. The chair will announce the names of those individuals. The executive director, and I'm saying this all just as a pure clerical / ministerial sort of announcements. We accept the resignation effective immediately, that the separation date will be as stated in the letter of February 15th with regard to, state service, state tenure, financial matters, length of service, etc. That the executive director will transition immediately into a purely transitional role and is from this point going forward not authorized to speak on behalf of the commission or its individual members, specifically refraining from legislative testimony or social media communications for the ethics commissions or formal proclamations, and that is done. Again, these are just kind of ministerial statements, not indicative of anything in particular. I think each of us can speak on our own to say we thank you for the service. We thank you for the government service and appreciate that.
Hey.
Yes, please.
I don't think that motion has any understanding of what happens across the street. We are about to engage in the budget process. I intentionally scheduled my dates of leave to be able to handle budget hearings, which is also my area of expertise. I built this budget. We've worked on it together. The entire purpose was for me to be able to handle the matters across the street while I'm transitioning off of this role. You also have included that investigations will continue, which appears to prevent winding down investigations, which does not make sense to me. I think this motion is ill-considered. I would encourage the commission to reject it.
Well, I will then have to address that there was a matter that took place last Tuesday where you went across to the legislature and you made recommendations with regard to legislation which was not just contrary to what was discussed with us, but was not consulted with us, and in fact expressly was different than what you told us in November, when the statement was made that we would not discuss legislation in litigation, and yet you went across the street and you did that very thing.
You pay an executive director to try to improve the laws. That is part of what we do. That is a statutory responsibility that is conferred upon an executive director. We are obligated to do these things. I'm confused by this motion.
So you would want to retain the authority to act on budgetary matters. Are there any other matters that you conceive of coming up in the next 3 weeks in the legislature that are not budgetary in nature?
I believe that the campaign finance overhaul is important for a variety of reasons. The legislature has been asking for it. They want to work with us on this. In order to do that, we have to take certain actions over there to suggest certain statutory change.
There have been bills introduced by legislators already. Senate Bill 40 is amending the Campaign Finance Act based upon the annual report's recommendation for the termination of campaign accounts. I suspect that they will want testimony from the executive.
I've also been asked for a fiscal note on that matter, which is required by the director.
Oh, what? I'm sorry.
A fiscal note. I've already been asked for what the fiscal effect on the agency would be, which happens every time any bill is introduced across the street that has anything to do with anything we even come close to touching.
So on January 14th, you made a submission to the legislature of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Yes, it was an expansive overhaul of the Campaign Finance
Of
Act.
those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them were what were in our report, and 4 of these were contrary to your representation to us.
That is not accurate. The representation to the commission in the annual report was that the commission, as a body, we're not going to include in the annual report any recommendations for things that are affected by litigation for obvious reasons. However, still have to go over and offer improvements to these laws. That's
Well,
I'll be glad to amend the motion with regard to budgetary matters, and that matters
I think that
expressly
this is,
concerning
I'm
budget.
concerned that the only people who benefit from removing me from a legislative advocacy process are the people on the other side who are trying to undermine the Campaign Finance Act. I am the only voice trying to make the laws better over there.
Can we
if
appoint
we were to
someone
hire
else?
Yes,
if we were to have appointed an interim director, which is not a decision that we've made, would it be the appropriate role for that interim director to just take on that function of advocating to the legislature? Or let me understand exactly how you conceived of the interim role. Would that role coexist with your role up until February 15th? Or would that be a true replacement? Or does that only take place after you've departed from the office?
The statutory ability for an interim director to be appointed occurs after the effective date of my resignation. So it would happen on February 16th or February 15th.
is there gonna be no legislation that's discussed or budgetary issues discussed after February 15th?
The interim director would take those responsibilities at that time.
Well, Mark, how would you propose the motion?
I don't know the purpose of any part of this motion. I'm not sure what the goal is, other than to prevent the agency from trying to make the laws better and advocate for our budget.
If we can appoint someone else to handle legislative matters, because obviously you're still staying on as the transition that we absolutely. Is there any reason why we can't appoint Caitlin to handle legislative matters
That's fine.
in this time?
Someone needs to be.
I'm not saying that we don't. I'm.
Well, that sounds like the solution. That sounds like the solution. Caitlin, are you prepared to handle these legislative responsibilities in Mark's absence?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think that that resolves the issue, but I think the underlying point is that the commission, at least based on our consensus and the motion made, is Mark, that you transition yourself immediately into a transitional support role and just take a step down from the, let's say, the active role that you would otherwise have
With respect to legislative advocacy, budget, or both?
with respect to both? And just, and again, this goes to supporting Caitlin as she is required to speak to budgetary matters or legislative matters. Does that fairly represent the view of the commission?
Just one caveat, which would be that she would consult with the commission on proposed changes to legislation.
I would like to make a request of, can I have what I am allowed to speak on, what I may speak on, and what I may not speak on very clearly identified to me? For a clarification, is it acceptable to defend the legislative proposals that were consistent and included in the annual report?
Yes.
Okay. I would definitely limit any discussion if I was asked to those that were included. I would like to ask, though, if there is legislation submitted from outside legislators that ask for just essentially expert testimony, but it goes outside of our annual report. Would you all like me to call an emergency meeting? I mean, we're talking like day before. They give very short notice.
Well, does it make sense to appropriate a subcommittee to kind of be a resource to Caitlin in the event that something legislative in nature comes up that requires maybe commissioner, let's say, assistance, but doesn't necessarily require the commission as a whole?
In that instance, if you're asking for the commission to provide input anytime there's any legislative change of any kind, that means amendments that occur in a committee meeting that we weren't previously aware of, we can't say anything about, which prevents us from serving in an advocacy role about the laws.
That's why I'm asking for as clear as possible guardrails so that I can do what is being asked. Because as Mark pointed out, that is something that does come up. If it's an amendment, am I crossing the line? Or it doesn't appear that that's the way. It appears that you all's intention is focused on the annual report. However, if I'm just trying to understand.
Might I suggest that if you have a question about anything, that you contact the chairman.
Yeah.
And the chairman will give you direction.
And if we need to call a meeting of the commission as a whole, we can certainly do that. I'd say that in addition to myself, the vice chair, I think the both of us can be available, pretty quickly if there's anything else that comes up. But we absolutely want to do whatever is necessary to put our best foot forward in front of the legislature. We also, I think, by the formation of the subcommittee, and I'll just announce that Commissioner Ramirez, Commissioner Clausen, and Commissioner Jackson are going to serve on the hiring subcommittee to find the replacement for the executive director. As long as it doesn't present a coma issue, I would also like to serve on that subcommittee in an ex officio capacity. And we would hope that we would have an opportunity to interview candidates in the week prior to our February 26th meeting. So we want to, I guess, emphasize that we want to put our resources and prioritize the hiring of a replacement as soon as possible. We understand that there are legislative issues that just need to be addressed. And if anything outside of the character of what's been described in the executive director's report and budget recommendations in our prior meeting, we should discuss that. Otherwise, I would say feel empowered to do whatever is consistent with what was communicated to the commission in the past.
Did you have a motion that you wanted?
I think we need to clean up
Yes, we did.
that for sure.
You got
Okay, well, there's also been a question made about investigation, but could you put some more flesh on that?
I would say that there are certain investigations that the executive director was attempting to tie up loose ends and resolve before he left his tenure with us, and he would like permission to do that. So not necessarily investigations where we're still trying to gather and we're still engaged in direct discovery, but
You're referring to winding down
Yes,
So how does that work though? Because then the complainant would no longer be employed by the commission
We're not talking about a scenario in which a complaint was filed.
or the affidavits as well?
Is there any reason his presence is required to close those out?
Just investigation. We haven't gotten to a complaint stage yet.
Right.
I would appreciate to have conversations with the person who's been prosecuting them longer to close them out.
Well, no,
And
that,
that's exactly what we're
That's
trying to do.
exactly transitional
Yeah.
support.
Is it
Okay.
simply the language in the motion where we said continuing investigations? We just mean continuing the trajectory.
Just
Where things are
assigning
going.
responsibilities about investigations would be fine.
and my separate thought on that is during this transitional period, we're not stopping our investigations that go on. So we have investigators who will continue to investigate. We have counsel who will continue to review.
Day-to-day
And-
operations will continue as normal.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I see the intent there.
There's any new matters.
And we don't want to find either you, Caitlin, hung out as serving in like an administrative director role and then getting conflicted as serving as a litigator, nor are we going to find that, Mark has been the witness and now we lose him and all of his effort.
Mm.
But the
We're
idea
thinking
would,
through
yeah,
this.
We're trying to avoid creating conflicts.
No, I understand that for sure. But I am going to be functionally serving as both. And so I'm having a hard time, and I think we might be on the same page, but I have a hard time of creating, for example, filing a new complaint if I don't know who the future director is going to be.
Correct.
And starting those processes. So, I mean,
so in that instance, it would be maybe an investigator.
Investigator would typically be the correct party in that instance.
Exactly. And I would discourage, if not prohibit you from serving as executive director for those same conflict purposes.
I think the disciplinary office might agree with you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So the idea just being that your role is unchanged. Maybe you develop more independence as general counsel in directing, where those investigations go as the general counsel.
Okay.
But if there's an action that would require,
I'm
a
just getting
decision.
confused because the executive director is like a constant presence in our office. I mean, we get calls daily from folks asking to talk to the director because they were unhappy with how staff resolved something. And so I am just trying to find out how to balance the roles. And I'm trying to make sure that what you all are expecting is the same as what I'm understanding you're expecting. And so I'm getting a little confused, and I think it's some of the words that we're using, because you're saying I'm still staying as general counsel, but only administratively doing, but the executive director does, okay, that's what I'm saying. I think we're miscommunicating, and it's getting me a little bit confused.
What I heard is that you would act for the commission before the legislature over the next couple weeks.
But the executive
But
director
that
does
otherwise,
things like paychecks. They handle approving time for payroll. They handle leave requests for vacation and sick leave. They're the agency head, so they are functionally the top of HR for the agency. And it would be my entire daily workload times 2. And so that's why I'm trying to, I am not saying I'm not willing to take that on. I'm just trying to understand the best balance to do both jobs the best as possible. And I understand the legislature and the budget as going over there and functionally representing the commission as interim director. But I'm trying to understand the scope of, if someone calls and says, can I speak with the director? Am I allowed to take that call and say, I'm the interim director, here's my answer to your question? Because people call us informal.
We're in a transitionary period. That's just the reality. And I think it's perfectly fair to tell somebody that we're in a transitionary period, that the executive director has indicated that he is resigning his position. And again, I don't know at what point that's considered, well, I guess this is a public meeting. This is known. I think it's fair to communicate that the executive director has submitted his letter of resignation, and we're just in a transitionary period.
Mr. Chair, could we ask that, Mr. Scogan prepare those tasks that, as our counselor indicated, someone who's determining how to get the paycheck out and the leave those are more ministerial functions that would be something we might expect the transitional person to handle. Whereas we might limit the responsibility of the council at this point to represent the commission on matters of budget and legislative action across the street. So we can clearly identify what Mr. Chilville is going to continue to do in his transition role versus what Ms. Ball is going to go do in the role as counsel for the commission. I think those are pretty easily defined. Okay, so I've heard two categories. Talk about the budget and the legislative proposals across the street. Those clearly items that are very important and need to be addressed immediately. And then a long alert series of lines of things that are day-to-day communications and actions that can be done as a transitional matter.
And to be clear, if in my time across the street, would be fair to identify with the full title if we're in a transition. I am the general counsel. I'm serving at this time as the interim director. Is that a fair representation to you all?
I would just say that I am counsel for this and
Yeah, representing
representing.
the commission here today.
Yes,
Without using,
I think that'll prevent a lot of future headaches for you.
yeah, that's right.
Being clear on what my
Right.
title, I mean, it's not just a title.
Yeah.
It matters. So
But that we've empowered you though in those matters.
Yes.
So whether your title is whatever.
I don't want to say the wrong thing.
No, I appreciate that.
So, okay.
So do we want to take another crack at articulating a motion that threads that needle in the simplest way possible? I mean, these are just the realities that we're grappling with now. I trust that we will get through this process, but I think that being able to truthfully just say that this is the executive director has submitted his resignation and that we are in the process of finding a replacement executive director. And until that happens, some things are just going to be in limbo. If there's anything that I can do to be of assistance, Caitlin, Paige, in terms of approvals, I know this is something that's been asked of me in the past and that often, I can be the signatory for various orders of various kinds. So if there's anything that I could be doing, please let me know. And Caitlin, I'm happy to talk, anytime you have questions. I mean, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to have a discussion.
I will definitely reach out. I'm no stranger to asking questions. So,
Chair, could we perhaps leave it that at this point in time, Ms. Bull will be counsel for the commission and will represent the commission before the legislature relative to budgetary and legislative matters, and Mr. Snowden will continue in a transitional role for any and other all ministerial functions of the agency. I don't know if that's a fair definition of the
Is that a motion or?
I'd like to hear from my fellow commissioners if I'm stating it correctly, so
That sounds accurate. I would simply amend it to say that Ms. Bull Stewart's actions would be in accordance with the annual report.
yes.
And then when there are issues that she will endeavor to reach out to our chair, who will make the decision as to whether additional commission action will be necessary.
Okay.
And then just clarifying or stating that executive director during that transitional time will perform those administrative roles, but is not otherwise empowered to speak on behalf of the Ethics Commission.
I have a follow-up question that may fall
Please.
into a category. We are hiring for a position right now. We're hiring for a position and it's not Mark's position.
What position are we?
It is, it's like an auditor and it's the SSI coordinator auditor position, and we have interviews already scheduled.
I'm happy to when are those interviews? I mean, can I participate in those interviews?
Is there any reason our subcommittee
Yeah.
can't handle this?
Let the chairman participate in those interviews.
Okay, I don't have this calendar in front of me.
Right.
Well,
Into-
look, let me know, and then I would say that let's just call our subcommittee to find the replacement executive director, just also a willing hiring committee for any positions. And Commissioner Ramirez, Commissioner Clausen, Commissioner Jackson, if you have the availability and want to participate, I think that we have willing commissioners that can help in various ways that kind of get us through, bridge us through this interim period.
In hiring staff, at least 1 or 2 staff members be participating in those hearings, those interviews, since staff is aware of what happens in the day-to-day of this office, and I think they would have significant input.
Okay,
Thanks.
Makes sense.
Subject to the discretion of you three.
Can I second that motion?
As
Modified.
amended, as modified, Jerry,
I'm sorry.
with those modifications.
30 years is modified, yes.
I would second Jerry's as modified.
Jerry's motion as modified. I trust that you've got your arms around that page for purposes of the record.
The video.
Yeah, like rewind. Yeah.
Well, I believe the general sentiment has been expressed. All in favor of approving the motion as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passes. And I believe I've already pointed out the members of the subcommittee. I think all that remains is that we have our next meeting date on February 26, 2025. That's in 5 weeks. We do need a motion to adjourn unless there are any other items or matters that anybody wishes to discuss.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the motion to adjourn today's meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion passes. This concludes the January 22nd meeting of the Kansas Governmental Ethics Commission. Thank you, everyone, for your participation today. We went longer than I can recall us having gone, but your time and efforts are greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Yes.
And thank you, Director Scogland. Again, I want to say sincerely that we appreciate everything that you've done for this commission. Your work has been significant, and I know you're transitioning away. And I know that maybe just these most recent comments, maybe, I don't know, strike you as unnecessary, but I think we're all sincerely trying to serve the best long-term interests of the Kansas Governmental Ethics Commission, and I believe that we will succeed in doing it. So thank you. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Chairman.
So,